What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 16 of Roster Lock, a best ball show over on the RotoViz YouTube channel. I am your host, Zachary Kruger, and joining me tonight is not one guest, but two, both from 4for4 Football. We have Jen Eakins and Chris Allen, who will be joining us tonight. We're going to get into a Puppy 3 draft that was just recently launched over at Underdog. They've been cranking out the puppies. This is the third one. Wouldn't be surprised if we see one more before the season officially starts. But we're going to get into it. We're going to draft the team, talk a little best ball shop. But before so, let me just quickly welcome them. Jen, Chris, thanks for joining me. How's everything going?
We're good. I'm good. I should say we, like I'm speaking for Chris.
Right?
I'm good.
We're like 2 time zones away, but
Yeah.
I mean, she's like speaking for me and everything already. My goodness.
Sure.
Like we haven't even started drafting and you're already like taking over the show. Like what is going on, Jen? But no, I'm doing great. Now, Zach, it was awesome to see you this past weekend. Glad we got to kick it for a few minutes, like up in Canton for a little while. I keep telling everybody, like any show or like anybody that I've talked to so far, I mean, if anybody gets a chance, they have to come to the expo next year, if at all possible, because it was just a wonderful experience, and I can't advocate for it more. But happy to get a chance to draft with y'all tonight for sure. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. It was a pleasure meeting you as well, Chris, over there. Some people had asked me my takeaway from the expo for anyone who wasn't there, and I just kind of told them that I think the most refreshing part about it, the best part about it for me, was just having a chance to see that all these people who you've made up in your mind are like super cool on Twitter, super nice people, are actually that in person. We like to believe that that's the case, but there's, sometimes you don't always want to meet your heroes. That great football player you love watching on Sundays isn't quite as cool when you go up and ask him for his autograph. Not that we're superstars out here, but just being able to see that outside of our field of Twitter and our fantasy spectrum, that at the end of the day, we're all just super cool, down there with people looking to hang out and have a good time. The Fantasy Football Expo completely brought that this year, and hopefully, Jen, we'll get you out to it next year, and then we can all have some fun and get together.
Yeah, I'd love to go. The reason I don't go is because, you don't, I was just going to say what you were saying. I'm actually not cool and not nice at all in person. So I kind of like to keep my Twitter persona as is and not go in person. No, I'm totally kidding. I would love to go. Hopefully one day.
Yeah. Hopefully, 2022 will be just around the corner. We'll see what that brings us. But Expo was great. So looking forward to hopefully running that back again next year. But for now, what we got to set our eyes on is what we're about to do right here. We're going to be doing a Puppy 3 draft over on Underdog Fantasy. If you're tuning in, we're going to go ahead and get right into that in a couple minutes here. Before we do, I'd kind of like to ask my guests, just because there's a lot of things going on right now with the NFL season. Training camp's officially underway. We're coming up on preseason week 2. I believe it starts tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Anything that stood out to either of you all over the last couple of weeks that you think we need to be mindful of as we enter into this draft, or just throughout the next couple of weeks as we draft before the season starts? Jen, we'll start with you.
I mean, no, I don't know. I think people take a lot of, listen, we all know preseason, you got to take some of it, for coach speak and some for whatever. And then we have, I don't know, I think we need to kind of pick and choose of what's going on. I mean, I think we've seen some really cool stuff emerge. There's a few guys that, a few names that we'd never even heard of that have emerged that I've started taking in drafts over the last 2 days, so I think that's always fun. And it can bite you in the ass because they could end up being, there's always the preseason darlings that do nothing. So, I think it's one of those things every year. People are super like, I don't know, people get super into what's going on when really we just need to kind of chill and trust the process from before.
Yeah. Chris?
I would say that while I'm not I haven't moved like too many guys like based off of preseason usage. I would say that the one thing that, and I know everybody's been talking about it, is the whole Miami Dolphins backfield thing, like after their preseason game. Yeah, the whole Malcolm Brown, like Myles Gaskin thing. But I was never really a Myles Gaskin guy, like prior to, just based off his ADP and the fragility of what we thought his projection was going to look like, along with the Miami Dolphins, their offensive line. So it already kind of confirmed my prior, so I didn't really like switch my draft process like either way. But it's just stuff like that where we just get like little bits and pieces of how the teams are going to operate during the regular season. So just how you wind up, you take that information with a grain of salt. It's just one more data point, but then we'll see what actually happens like once week 1 rolls around.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think the big thing for me, and there's, a number of things that stand out, but I think the one for me is actually Just narrowing down the individual player, I would say is Terrace Marshall of the Carolina Panthers. He's been getting a ton of camp buzz. He looked good in the last preseason game. I believe they play tomorrow night. I'm not 100% sure on the actual games for this week, but they play soon. I think they play the Ravens because they're practicing with them right now. Terrace Marshall's a guy who's just popping up in drafts right now. Whatever his ADP is, I've not seen it yet in the Puppy 3, but whatever it is, I'm probably okay taking him a little bit earlier than what his ADP is if I don't I guess at this point I'd say if I don't love any of the guys who are ahead of him in ADP. I really like what he could possibly bring to the table in 2021. So Terrace Marshall is just a single player who I'm willing to make a little bit of a reach on depending on where he's sitting at and how the draft's shaping up. So we'll talk a little bit more in a second here. I'm going to real quick get us into one of these drafts, and then we can see how quickly it fills. I can only imagine that because it's Underdog, it'll be filled in about the next 10 seconds, and then we'll be focused solely on that. Yeah, look at that. We're waiting for 2 people.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So, have you guys done a Puppy 3 yet? I know this one's a little bit different just in terms of prizes, but the overall concept is still the same. Have you guys
I've done a few.
I did a couple yesterday.
Okay.
I'll just say I've done a few.
I have actually done a few.
Okay.
Yeah, I did 2 yesterday. I guess that's a few, right?
Yeah, that's a few.
I did do 2 fast ones yesterday, and I think I put it in the 4 for 4 Slack. But the one thing that I thought was completely crazy is that I had 2 different drafters go 1 quarterback, and both of them did it in the 18th round, which I thought was really weird. I've never seen that happen.
Yeah.
I had 2, I've never seen even one person do it, and this draft had 2, and one guy took Watson and the other took Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's their only quarterback. And I thought that was
baby.
Interesting strategy, I guess. We'll see how that goes.
Bold strategy, Cotton, right there.
Yeah, I can't get behind that.
No, I can't do it either. All right, the 106, not bad.
Yep, 106. Draft starts in 25 seconds. We'll go to Jen here real quick.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your preferred pick out of this spot? In a perfect world, who would you take here if they came, at this spot, given their ADPs right now?
106. I'm usually going with either Adams or Kelsey, unless someone like Kamara drops. I'm not a Zeke person or a Saquon person, so I'm usually going to after those top running backs, I'm going to go to either a wideout or Kelsey.
Okay, and Chris?
I think I would agree with Jen. I mean, Kelsey at 6, we know the upside that he provides at that particular position. So I think that's a fair start. If you have Adams now at the front of the wide receiver rankings, that's also fine. I think some of the other running backs, I could make the argument for Aaron Jones there.
Mm-hmm.
Could also make the argument for Zeke if you wanted to. But I like, at least for my money, I typically go Kelsey at that point, or Kels, I guess is the way you pronounce it.
Yeah. Is that a correction that was recently made? It's
Kels, he said it himself. Apparently, it's supposed to be Kels, which is odd.
Travis Kels.
That's weird for me.
Yeah, I don't know that I can. Yeah, I don't know if I can do that.
It's also 2 brothers who have gone through the NFL under that name. You think one of them would have spoke up
right? Yeah. Well, he went, so we're up, and he's gone.
Yeah. So do you want to go Adams here, or should I queue up someone else? You got 15 seconds.
Jen, it's you.
I don't hate Aaron Jones if you want to start that build that way. It just depends on which way we want to go from here on out,
Yeah.
I say Aaron Jones.
All right, I'll go Jones. I'm okay with that. I have a lot of Adams teams, so I'm this is the Puppy 3. We got to go big, right? We got to switch it up.
Sure. I mean, let's go there and see what happens. We did pass on Alvin Kamara, but I think.
I didn't realize he was there.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara was there. So we did pass on him, but you never know what could happen here. Upside for Aaron Jones could be 15 20 touchdown season. Alvin Kamara may not quite see that. You never know. So I think at this point in time, a pick like that early over Kamara is really just betting on your offense to be right. And then that's probably also going to give us a little bit more of a unique build than some other people who maybe aren't taking Jones quite that early. So I got no problem with that pick. What would you guys be looking to do as we circle back here in the second round, depending on the board? Because one of the things that we know a lot of people are talking about is the hyper fragile strategy. Have you guys bought into the hyper fragile this year? Do you think it's being too overused to the point where it maybe doesn't hold the strength that it did in 2019 or in 2020 when not as many people were doing it? What are your thoughts on using a hyperfragile approach right now?
At least for me, I do think that some folks they've taken the strategy, but they've tried to, I guess, go way too hardcore on it and just say like you have to take like those like first 3 running backs right out the back, where you're not really taking account for, I guess, the real tenets of the hyperfragility strategy itself.
Yeah.
Because we have already identified a number of backs that are going, let's say, even in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, depending on like what you think about Darrell Henderson, that could also fall into those type of running backs that could fit the bill for such a strategy. So you could do hyperfragile, but then wind up starting with, let's say, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, or somebody like that, and then wind up getting somebody like Chris Carson, somebody like Miles Sanders, somebody like DeAndre Swift later, that could at least still provide like the same positional upside that you would be doing if you were to start off with, let's say, a Dalvin Cook and then maybe hit a CEH like on the back end or something like that. So I think some folks have gone overboard in just trying to say, I'm going to accomplish the strategy that way, where there are ways that you can build off of, you can create a hyperfragile roster without necessarily adhering to like the core tenets of like when it started becoming more popular, let's say in 2019, 2020, something like that.
Sure. We are coming up here with this next pick. Where you guys leaning? I just put a couple guys in queue, but we don't need to go this route.
Let's see, who do we have?
I was gonna say Jonathan Taylor at that point.
But he would have been really nice.
Yeah.
I'm not a Mixon person, so that's not going to be for me. Personally, I'd probably do one of the 2 that you have in there. I mean, there's an argument for Najee if you guys want to go, back-to-back running backs. That's not usually something I do, but
I vote AJ Brown.
AJ Brown?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Jen said one of the 2, and Chris took a definitive AJ Brown statement right there. So we'll go that kind of fits the request for both, one of the 2, and we get AJ Brown.
Yeah, no.
I do like that pick.
I'm fine with that. Listen, I'm usually someone that will try to get an elite tight end. If I don't, then I just punt all the way. So I'm totally cool with that. I like to, do both. So I don't want to always have, a Kelsey or a Waller or a Kittle. So I'm totally fine with that. And I always, AJ Brown is going to get a ton of targets. We know that. So I'm cool with that.
Now, Jen, do you like Kittle as one of the elite tight ends this year? And I know that some people have kind of soured on him. They don't like his ADP. That some of them do. I personally am taking Kittle if he follows me from time to time. Are you just it's a top 2 class with Kels and Waller, or do you like Kittle as well?
I like Kittle if he falls. The thing with Kittle's good. Kittle's going to get the volume. The problem with Kittle is that he's a maniac. He plays really hard and he gets hurt. And so that's really what it is with him. Like he's all or nothing on the field, which is great. But at the same time, it sets him up for getting hurt. And so it's a little scary to waste, an early pick like that on someone. I mean, granted, we all know everyone can get hurt, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. But the way he plays, he kind of sets himself up there. So if he falls somewhere in the 3rd, I don't have a lot of him. I'm going to be honest. I seem to get him more in like a super flex where he'll fall, to the 4th or even 5th. But in these underdogs, I usually don't end up with Kittle.
Sure. Real quick, I want to get your thoughts, Jen, and I want to get Chris's thoughts. We'll make the pick. Where is your cutoff for like the elite tight ends that are worth taking? Is it like where are you usually stopping at where you're willing to punt the position?
Honestly, Waller. I mean, every now I'll take a Hawkinson here and there. I'm completely out on Pitts. I'm not in on that. But then I will take Andrews because I feel like he's falling a lot, especially now with all these Baltimore receivers hurt. Like, why not? Andrews in the 5th. I will certainly do that. After that, I'm done though, and I'm all the way to like 13th or 14th roundville. After that, I don't do the Higbee and the Logan Thomas and the Fant. I'm pretty much out on that tier. I just feel like there's better value there.
Yeah, I agree. Kittle just went real quick here. Chris, where is your out pointed tight ends? And then let's get ready to make this pick.
My out is pretty much at tight end 6, like after Hawkinson goes. Like that's really where I'm starting to just look at the rest of the guys that are going after that. So let's see who the receivers and running backs that are currently going here.
You got McLaurin. Anyone?
I would go Terry. Because I don't trust Swift in the groin, and I don't really want Sanders or Montgomery. I feel like we can get one of those guys on the way back. But
can we get an endorsement? Chris, Terry?
Terry McLaurin, absolutely.
Right, let's do it. I like that pick as well. He's a pretty easy third-round pick for me here. I like him a lot. Even marginal fall in value. Not going to get too excited about three-pick value, but any value is a good value. We'll take it where we can get it. And he's easy to fit a lot of best ball builds in terms of if you wanted to do any kind of stacking with either another Washington receiver later on down the line. I think Damian Brown is someone who I'm mildly interested in. Ryan Fitzpatrick's always a guy you can get in drafts if you're willing to do it, and maybe get just a couple picks early to ensure that you do. So when looking to stack for these things, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is a good player to have later on with McLaurin if you want him. Even Logan Thomas is I think a pretty decent ADP right now.
Yes.
Just as far as us talking about tight ends goes. If I was punting the position, I'd kind of be willing to get back in on Logan Thomas at this point in time. Are there any stacks that you guys are particularly targeting in terms of teams and in these tournaments right now?
At least for me, I know that the one stack that I've been trying to get as much as I possibly can is the Miami Dolphins passing game stack, just because it's so easy to wind up building. All of the wide receivers as of right now. Fuller going in the 7th, 8th round, Waddle going shortly after that, Devontae Parker going in the 9th, 10th round, and then you can pick Tua up at quarterback 14, 15, depending on which draft that you're in. So building a stack like that is relatively cheap, and then if you wind up subscribing to any of the early round stacks, so if you get Seattle or you want to get the Bucs stack or something like that, it's just so much easier to wind up pairing him with a guy like Tua, who at the very least, even though I talked about it earlier about the offensive line being something of a concern for Miami, I don't think it's going to be as much of a concern, at least for the passing game, because at least we know with Tua the mobility's there, and we've seen at least from the camp reports that the accuracy and the aggressive tendencies for him to throw deep balls. That's all still there. It's just the problem is the pass catchers being healthy, because pretty much everybody's hurt right now. Yeah. They even said Allen Hurns, who's their 5th wide receiver, he's going to be out for 2 months with a wrist injury. So it's just who's going to be healthy on the squad once week 1 comes around. That's really my only concern. But other than that, Miami has been the one I've been trying to hammer the most.
Yeah. Jen, what about yourself?
I've been actually stacking Miami. Jacksonville's super cheap and easy to stack. The Browns are really easy to stack.
Another good one.
Not your primary, but a secondary stack of Baker and Landry and Hooper, and they're there and they're cheap. So I've been kind of doing that. I like Steelers. I've been stacking them too because they're kind of cheap pieces as you go along. Are we up next?
Yep, we're up right now here. So this is kind of who we're looking at the top. Any names that stick out who I can just throw in the queue real quick?
Miles Sanders, Chris Carson.
Put them in there. Jen?
Yeah. I'm always a Carson person. I don't hate Jamar Chase either if we're gonna continue at wide receiver.
I say Sanders.
Sanders is going to get auto-picked to us, which is fine because we do need another running back. So we'll get Sanders. Chris, you were quick on the Miles Sanders gun. What's up with him? Why do you like him? He's not a player who I have personally been drafting a lot of, but I can see some argument.
This might be the first Sanders that I have in all the whole season.
His situation hasn't changed. I really don't see why the dislike for Sanders at this point. Because if you're talking about a running back who's at least going to have 60 to 7% of the primary workload, see at least a 7 to 8% target share within his own offense. There's really no other competition for goal line work. If you really believe in any of the guys that are sitting behind him, do we really still believe in Jordan Howard? Kenny Gainwell, who everybody was hyped about, he's seen less than 5. First team reps in camp so far. So unless you're completely down on the Eagles offense as a whole, which I can understand some folks might be, but Miles Sanders, at least from a volume perspective, he grades out from an opportunity standpoint as the same guys that we're taking in the second round. So I don't see what the difference is.
Yeah. Jen, I would not have been against going with Jamar Chase either. I think T. Higgins is already off the board. Yeah, he is. He must have just gone a couple picks beforehand. I kind of like all pieces of that Bengals pass catching offense here. Where we want to line up our pick for the 5th round here that's coming up, y'all? Do we want to kind of go with a wide receiver now that we got 2 early running backs? What are we thinking as it comes back here?
I like Deontay a lot. But I can be talked into something else.
I know. I was actually ready to put Deontay in there. Any interest in Goddard or Thielen, or should we drop the Q? Should we put Etienne in there? Is he interesting? Pitts would be a value at this point in time. I know, Jen, you said you didn't really like him. I don't know where Chris is on that.
Not particularly, to be quite honest. If anything,
Okay.
I'm guessing he's going to wind up getting picked here. I would still wind up taking. Hawkinson. Thielen's not that bad. I know everybody wants to point out regression at some point, but it just seems like the trendy word to apply to a receiver that you didn't like already to begin with. Mm-hmm. So it's just okay, fine. I'm fine with taking Adam Thielen, to be quite honest.
Jen, where are you at on that? Is there someone we would take over Thielen?
Let's see.
I'm just trying to.
I'm okay down with Thielen. I mean, like Chris said, I mean, I think that people just want to kind of. I mean, yes, he had a ton of touchdowns last year, and that may not be sustainable. But he's, he's a second wideout in that offense. He is getting a little older, but I think, I think he's fine. I mean, we took him, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't hate him. I mean, I wouldn't gun for him every draft, but to have some of him sprinkled in, I think is totally fine.
I guess everybody wants to point out his red zone targets and all that, and then point to efficiency, saying he's going to be bad. But we're not applying the same logic to let's say Aaron Rodgers, who I understand plays a completely different position, but the dude still threw 8 touchdowns from the 1 yard line last year. So we're expecting that to happen again. We're still expecting all these other guys that everybody's super happy about, like Josh Allen, improving, from a passing efficiency standpoint. I mean, all these other guys that everybody's super excited about, nobody wants to point to any sort of regression with them. With Adam Thielen, they just point to that and say red zone targets. He's this super high efficiency, unsustainable, so he's going to regress. And it's okay, but you're not going to use that for anybody else. So I don't understand the logic train there.
Yeah, I think he's a good value. I mean, we got him 6
half
picks
round.
later. Yeah.
Yes,
and I think he's a good value to start with, really, because people don't seem to believe that he's going to have a decent season again.
Yeah.
Even if he does regress, he still, I think, is going to see enough targets to hopefully get somewhere in that 850 to 900, maybe even 1,000-yard season. He's got the size to work in the red zone. I think my concern would be that maybe he loses some red zone work to a guy like Irv Smith, who I really like a lot. But as far as Irv Smith goes, Irv Smith can still have a very solid season. Maybe Thielen regresses from 14 touchdowns, which he had last year, to 10 or something like that. And that's still a very good season for Adam Thielen as well. So even if he's not quite hitting that 14 touchdown ceiling, if he's getting close to the double digits or still reaching double digits, I don't think we're going to be complaining about getting him at his, in this case, the 5th round ADP, the mid-5th round ADP that we got him at. One guy who is falling right now is Travis Etienne. I know there was some James Robinson news that came out that he is still possibly going to be the lead back in Jacksonville, but he would be a pretty easy scoop for me if we got him right here. I'm not sure if you all feel the same way about that.
Yeah, I was just noticing that too. I would 100% pick him up. I would do that right now.
I was just going to say I would prefer Javonte Williams, but he just went, so that's
Yeah, are you cool with Etienne here, Jen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, he's fallen a lot, so that's
Yeah, he's fallen a lot. I didn't actually see the James. We're just gonna go ahead and outright take him here. Has anyone seen the actual James Robinson news? All I got was an alert on my phone, and it was.
I saw nothing.
That was from me. Yeah, that's old. Yeah.
I got an update from the Sleeper app. I'll have to check it out a little bit later on, but it was basically saying if there was any question whether or not James Robinson was going to be locked in as the Jaguars running back, here's your proof. And I think within that link, if I would have clicked it, that was supposed to be my proof that was going to make me move off of Travis Etienne like everyone else apparently did in this draft. But I'm not willing to. I think he still has a lot of pass catching upside. Jen, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the thing is, it's Urban Meyer. You can't trust anything. That's the only thing about this offense that just makes me nervous in general. What is he going to do? I mean, yes, he finally cut Tebow. That's great, but
after the whole world's saw how
finally a good move by Urban Meyer.
Right, but so it's a little scary that he might make moves that are just not quite, NFL. I don't know. I'm not really sure with him. He has plenty of talent on this team. I just, what he's going to do with it is kind of scary.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think at the end of the day, I could still come back to some of the draft capital argument and say that Etienne is going to see the opportunity we wanted to see out of him for that reason alone. And then on top of that, if you want to talk about negative game scripts that the Jaguars should still see a lot of in 2021, I think Etienne is going to be a very good back for a PPR, in this case, a half PPR standpoint, where it's hard to imagine some depth chart, scouting, phasing him out of the game. I think that when the game ultimately calls for him to be on the field, he will be more often than not. And then even if it's not the game script doing it, I think it's just going to be the fact that he's a first-round running back playing with, old teammate Trevor Lawrence, playing with an offense that's hopefully looking to pick up the pace a little bit in 2021 and move on from that James Robinson slow grind over the course of the season.
100%. And with this particular roster, you've already mitigated most of the concerns about his early season workload by taking him as your RB3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. We're about to be on the clock again here. What do we want to do for this next pick? There's a couple of different ways we can go here.
I've got an idea.
Go ahead, Chris.
What do you got?
I was thinking about starting up a Jaguar stack, right there.
I was just going to say LaVisca, I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm Visca. You guys?
Yeah, I'm 100% Visca.
Me too.
Yeah, Visca over Chark, absolutely.
Easy enough. I love that pick. I'm going to plan ahead here. Hopefully no one decides to use this against us. I mean, if you see what we just talked about doing it, hopefully if they're interested in getting us, then they won't do that based on this pick. They already had it in their sights themselves. But no, right. I like the Jaguar stack. One of my favorite things about the Jaguar stack, and even I guess the Titans to a degree, which we do have AJ Brown here. So if we wanted to run it back with Ryan Tannehill later, that could be an option as well. But one of my things I do like with these particular stacks is I think the AFC South is just kind of one of, or hopefully going to be for this sake, one of the less impressive defensive units as a whole across all of the division. It's just I think the Colts will be solid, but then when you're looking at Houston, you're looking at Jacksonville, you're looking at Tennessee, not a lot of stout defenses other than having familiarity within the opponents of your division. I think that the AFC South could be poised for a lot of high-scoring games, which could benefit us in fantasy. I'm not sure where either of you are on that. Chris?
I think it's the most ambiguous division in football as of right now. I mean, to be quite, I guess take that back because I'd say the NFC West is also fairly ambiguous because we're excited about every single team within that division. Yeah. But I would say that's the one where you probably has the most ambiguity with the least amount of hype. Because all of the players from all of the NFC West teams are getting drafted super early. But any of the folks from the AFC South teams, I mean, other than AJ Brown and Derrick Henry, and most of the other guys, we're not really drafting them all too high because there is some uncertainty associated with each of their teams. I mean, look at all the Colts guys. I mean, you have to wait until past pick 100 to wind up getting any of those guys minus Jonathan Taylor. So it's just, I think you're absolutely right, Zach, in that because we don't know, or we're not as excited about that division as a whole, it's easy to wind up stacking or creating stacks most times because outside of Jonathan Taylor and Derrick, it's hard to get excited.
I think we may have lost Chris. Jen, do you?
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was really I was loving the Colts stack early in the season before Wentz got hurt. I've been kind of laying off them a little bit, but I totally understand. And really the Colts are kind of ambiguous all over. I mean, their tight end room is ambiguous. You just kind of have to take a stab, whether it's Mo Alley Cox or the rookie. But those guys are all super cheap. I mean, but now, I mean, Wentz supposedly could be ready by week 1, even though they said they're not going to do it. But, we're up.
Real quick, we're back up here. I was just going to ask you real quick. Chris, you are back in, it appears. Any interest in Brandon Cooks? Can I throw him in the box?
I don't have too much of an interest in him, to be quite honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I would rather go with Curtis Samuel. I see right there. I'd rather go with him. Jarvis Landry, I wouldn't mind taking a shot at him, but Curtis Samuel really sticks out to me at this point.
Jen, are you cool with Samuel? I think we're going to get auto.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Samuel person. I was a little concerned. I'm still a little bit concerned. He has, is it a groin, right?
Yeah.
Those are always super scary to me, but it seems like everybody has a groin issue right now. It's weird, but he's back from the pup, and we were talking up the Washington offense earlier, and I'm always on board with Samuel.
Look at that. Yeah. Now we got 2 stacks from 2 different divisions already rolling.
Yeah.
We do. I definitely don't hate that at all.
Oh yeah, we had Terry already, don't we?
Yeah.
We had Terry,
I forgot we had
Curtis.
Terry already. All right.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that that's fine. I was talking with someone. Actually, I was talking with Greg Smith last night on the Best Ball Live show, just about how I don't think we'd always have to get offenses where we stack them with the quarterback. I think sometimes if you just want to get the best options in that offense and fade the quarterback, that's fine to do, because I think that right now we are in a position where we could go with quarterbacks who are possibly a little bit better in a little bit safer situation than Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think that both Ryan Tannehill and Trevor Lawrence make a lot of sense for this build. So if we wanted to kind of enjoy the Washington pieces that we have, get quarterback elsewhere, I think that would be fine too. One other guy who is slipping a tiny bit, not too much, not quite the whole way yet, but I think it's just for me, I'm so used to seeing him go earlier than this, is Jalen Hurts. Doesn't really stack up with any players who we currently have in the offense.
Well, we have Sanders.
We do have Sanders. That's a good point. I never really thought about it from that angle. Is Hurts a guy you'd be interested in for any kind of stacks in this degree, just because he's got that Konami code quarterback upside? Quez Watkins is a guy we could probably add later if we really wanted to get a wide receiver, and he's been getting a lot of hype in camp. Any interest in Hurts here if he falls? And if not, where would you be looking to go with this next pick?
Go ahead, Jen.
I was on Hurts, then I'm off Hurts. Now I'm kind of back on Hurts. Seriously, he's someone that's just, he's a little scary. I feel like we have a very small sample size, but he does run, which is obviously something that's is advantageous for this stuff. I could be talked into Hurts if he looks like he's going to be there unless this guy takes him. Or gal, I should say.
Unless he goes here. I'm going to put him in the queue just so we don't get, caught with someone who we absolutely don't want. Chris, are you interested in Hurts at all here, or would you go elsewhere with this pick?
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I do think that I was concerned as well about like what his outlook was going to be, especially at the start of the offseason when his like two top targets was either a tight end in Dallas Goddard, who's essentially been replaced with Zach Ertz, who's still on the team because we thought he was leaving, and Miles Sanders. There really weren't too many wide receivers that we were excited about, but now we've got the emergence of Quez Watkins, like you mentioned. Jalen Reagor is actually looking fairly sharp in camp. I mean, even beating some of the New England Patriots corners at this point. So at least there is some sense of optimism for that passing game. So sure, why not? And then also the other part, and this is something that it's a micro strategy. I don't know if it works or not, but at least it makes some sense to me. But for tournaments like this, like while getting to the playoffs is like the big thing, trying to harness like their week 17 matchups to see if you can like capitalize on that sort of thing is something I look for. And Philadelphia does actually play Washington in week 17. So we've already got that micro stack that's already a part of our roster. Yeah. So it kind of already lays itself out for us here, folks.
Yeah, and I think that, you mentioned Ertz, and I was going to say, we can absolutely, he's ridiculously cheap. I assume he's climbing a little bit, but
he's popped up a couple of rounds in the last few days.
He's always there at the end. So that's
191.2.
Yeah, he was probably at like 213, last week before the preseason game, and it appears he's not going anywhere. So he might have lost a step or two, but at the same time, they're going to use him. They're going to use both of them. So I think he's definitely going to be, outperform his ADP.
He could wind up being like, it might be a poor comparison, but like Jason Whittian in terms of like he'll just wind up getting a bunch of targets and then just falling down afterwards. Dallas Goddard is the yards after the catch dude. But we'll take those targets at that ADP. I'll take those targets all day long.
Yeah,
for sure.
I was going to ask real quick, Jen, because you seemed less sold on Hurts than myself or Chris did. If there was a player who you would have asked us to pivot to or consider, who would that have been before we come up here at the 10:07?
I don't even remember who was there, to be honest with you. It might have been. I might have pushed for Tannehill at that point.
Okay,
but
the Tennessee stack is understandable.
Yeah, but I'm totally fine with Hurts, especially if we grab Hurts later or Watkins. I've been grabbing Watkins here and there over the last couple of days myself.
Now, one decision to make real quick is Dallas Goddard, who is falling.
Oh, he is still there.
Yeah.
Do you guys want that? He would be our tight end one. Is there anyone else we would want to get here?
Can you go to the wide receivers real quick and see who's there?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry. a lot of guys I don't want given who we have.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to see real quick if there was anyone.
I'm fine with Goddard, like due to the value that we're getting.
I'm fine with that too.
We're
Totally
literally a full round past his ADP.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't someone that we.
Yeah,
I know. That's where I was at with that too. I wanted to just kind of make sure that we weren't going to pass up on. I mean, those Eagles values are coming in right off the.
We got freaking stacks on stacks on stacks.
Yeah,
it's not too bad for a fast. Normally, I'm the type of person that even if I am doing a fast draft for some reason, I'd like, what is it? The dog from Up, just like straight squirrel, and like I'll like lose track of where I'm at, and I'll wind up just like either auto picking or swiping over a guy without considering my stack options or stuff or something like that. I think I was doing a draft last night where I was eyeing picking up. I started with Travis Kelce. I got Russell Wilson later, and I was eyeing getting Gerald Everett, and I wound up picking a wide receiver like 2 picks before Everett's ADP, thinking he was going to make it back to me, and then I wound up losing him, and I completely messed up my stack and all that. It was such a killer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just stuff like that where it's awesome seeing like that sort of like those stacks and stuff just fall into place in a draft like that.
Fast drafts are a whole different animal, man. When you get used to the slow, and then all of a sudden you're like, and then you're looking around, and I've definitely panic drafted. I've stacked without meaning to stack, and not like in a good way.
Oh,
I've
I'm
handcuffed
100%
things that I didn't want to handcuff myself without, I've handcuffed tight ends by accident. So
the more I think about it, I'm 100% convinced that the person that wins any one of these tournaments is going to be a fast drafter, because there's at least 1 to 2 teams that are just DOA by the end of the 18th round.
For sure.
Because they've timed out, or because they've just completely forgotten about roster construction or whatever. Like it's so easy for me to see somebody being able to even just paying basic attention to roster construction. It's just that they'll probably wind up at least advancing out of their league, just because they already have they're basically shooting for, they have like a 10% chance to win because 2 teams have already like knocked themselves out versus the 8.3% that we normally get.
Yeah.
We're up next.
Oh,
there goes
That was
Tanner.
who I was going to ask you guys if we wanted. Now we could still take Lawrence here. That wouldn't be a reach on ADP at all. We could get Lawrence and have our Jack stack. Is that?
I'm absolutely fine with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I think we're set at. I mean, we're pretty strong at running back like already. Wide receivers are looking fairly decent. I mean, even if we add a second quarterback at this point, that's not a big deal. So it's just I think we've already got a pretty strong squad so far. So I like it.
Yeah. All right. One question I wanted to ask you guys as we get Lawrence here at the 11:06. So, we're talking about 2 onesie positions here. We've now drafted a tight end. We've got 2 quarterbacks. Is Goddard? I have 2 questions. Is Goddard on your roster a strong enough tight end where you would only want to take a 2 tight end build, or would you want to be looking for that third? And then the same question for quarterbacks. Would you be looking to go with the third quarterback? Given who we have, one of the things that Sean Siegel has talked about a couple of different times is, and it's kind of a basic theory, but I understand why it is what it is not wanting those onesie positions, the 2 of those to take up 6 total roster spots. So I wouldn't want to personally go 3 at each. Would you want to go 3 at either? Would you want to maybe go 2 at both? Do we feel good enough about that? Let's kind of walk through that before we get up to our next pick here. Chris, we'll start with you.
For quarterbacks, typically I just go 2. The only time that I would go 3 is unless I'm trying to shoot for just the absolute moon by hitting some of the rookies that are going later. So if you wanted to do like a Justin Fields, a Zach Wilson, somebody like that, and then maybe pair him with a Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, a Derek Carr, even though even that feels like a little bit thin. But that'd be the only time I'd do 3 quarterbacks. And then the same thing for tight ends. It's like if you're going early at tight end, you try to draft as if you're right. So if you're drafting Travis Kelce, you're essentially saying I'm going to have Travis Kelce for 17 weeks, minus the bye week. And so you're really just looking for another guy to fill in that bye week. So the Dallas Goddard, I think he falls on the fringe. If you had asked me the same question about like 6 weeks ago, I'd have been like, sure. Like Dallas Goddard, like Tyler Higbee to some degree, he would be like the only guy only other 2 tight ends I would consider being like the last of the tight ends that I would cut off and say, yep, I'll just take one other tight end and be cool. Now with the Zach Ertz still being a part of the roster, I'm a little bit leery about it, but it just depends on if we have enough strength everywhere else in our roster such that having 2 tight ends isn't as bad, right? Because if let's say, look at our wide receivers right now. If we continue to hammer wide receivers, so we're essentially winning not just our wide receiver spots plus the flex, then I'm less concerned about the tight end position at that point because we have so much strength everywhere else.
Yeah. Jen, what about yourself when you're looking to do that? Anything you would
Yeah,
add to what
I'm
Chris
the
said?
same. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to do 3 at both, no matter what. That's just too much draft capital in those onesie positions. I think Goddard's right at the cutoff. I think it's one of those things like I did. I wrote win rate articles at the earlier, and those super late tight ends very rarely hit.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be doing it, but I still end up doing it because I love those guys. So I end up, in those final 2 rounds, I'll go with like an Alberto or a Tyler Conklin or a, Ertz like nowadays. So, and I know I shouldn't because they don't, history shows that those guys don't hit. But if I do end up like with someone like Goddard, then I may grab like an Everett, and then I may go one more time and do like, like I said, an Ebron or a Mo Alley Cox or just someone in those late that you feel like is gonna, you hope is gonna hit, and they may one day, but that's kind of my deal.
Real quick, we have 10 seconds. I already have some players in the queue just in case here.
Nelson Aguilar comes at the top list. I'm more of a Jacoby Myers guy, but that's more. I've been looking at the yards per route run and using PFF stats in order to and I've kind of claimed him as one of my guys, but. I can totally see Nelson Aguilar still being able to capitalize off of the production that he had when he was still with Las Vegas last year. His intermediate route running ability, I think, fits in well with either of the 2 quarterbacks, whether it's Cam Newton under center or if it winds up being Mac Jones at some point, which I'm assuming is going to be sooner rather than later. We'll see how this whole quarterback position battle settles out in New England. But Nelson Aguilar, I think, is a fine pick right there.
Yeah,
that is officially my first Nelson Aguilar share of the entire season. I definitely do not draft him, but hey, here we are.
I've been hammering Jacoby Myers, but I have no issue with taking
I don't do either of them, to be honest with you. I've been, kind of punting and going with John Smith or Henry. I mean, obviously they're both now kind of banged up, so I'm off that a little bit. I was off them in the beginning once they signed, and then I kind of talked myself into them because I wrote a couple articles about them, and then now I've kind of, petered off of that entire offense, to be honest. I think
picking a stance on one of them makes sense. I mean, if you were to tell me you're a Jonnu Smith person, then cool. And I can see how it works out just because how he's being used in the backfield, possible red zone usage, blah, blah, blah. If you're there for Hunter Henry as well, because you can see him being more of the guy that gets the more snaps because he's the better blocker. He could be essentially the Cooper Kupp, not Cooper Kupp, rather Tyler Higbee, that sort of thing. But I can see that as well. But it's just, if you pick one and just wind up saying I'm just not going to draft the other guy, okay, fine. But I think it does make some sense to at least have some exposure to both because we don't know how the whole thing is going to look.
We don't.
And it's also contingent on who the quarterback is going to be too. And we don't know that.
For sure.
Yeah. We're going to come up here 13-6. What do we want to do for this next pick? Some of the things are getting gross out here. We have 1 tight end. We definitely need another running back. I think we can wait on wide receivers. So let's get wide receivers.
Can I see the running backs? There's none even in that range. You have them highlighted. They're just not there.
There's some. Nyheim Hines has fallen a little bit. J.D. McKissick is there. We're on the clock now. Those are kind of it for that.
Yeah, I don't love any of those. I'd be cool with another tight end. I'd be good with an Everett. Well, where are we in that range? Yeah, see, I'd be good with Everett.
Absolutely. I would take Gerald Everett at this point. Now I'm just making sure the bye weeks don't match up, right? Because when are the Eagles? Are they 12 or 14? Yeah, I think. Yeah. No, then I'd be happy.
Let's do Everett since Chris got that last Aguilar pick that I wouldn't have made. So, yeah, Everett.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's go with Everett there. I like that pick.
Yeah.
He's kind of one of those tight ends who, if I had to look at some guys who are going outside the top 12, the guys who I can make a little bit more case for upside for, being one of the. Maybe sneaking in and being a tight end one. I think Gerald Everett is an interesting case just because we know he plays with an elite quarterback. He also plays with a quarterback who has done his best to give meaningful targets to his tight end in season. The problem is that tight end is usually Will Dissly, and the problem is Will Dissly is never freaking healthy. So
and Olsen's gone, and he's got the he has his former guy Shane Waldron from the Rams who knows how to use him. So I think he's in a good spot for being so late.
Well,
ADP.
the other part is we need to figure out who that third pass catcher on the team is going to be, because whomever that's going to be is going to be the one that benefits from the touchdowns as well. Because if I'm remembering correctly, Russell Wilson has thrown 30 plus touchdowns in 4 straight seasons. So unless you're banking on like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf going just completely ham and scoring all the touchdowns, they're going to leak to somebody else. And so while Chris Carson is probably going to get his, we'll see what Rashad Penny does as well, and like how much his involvement is going to be. But I would bank on Gerald Everett like also being a strong part of that offense now, in that up tempo offense that everybody's talking about, like Shane Waldron like bringing over from the Rams.
Yeah.
You're not. Can I interest you in some Dwayne Eskridge, like your buddy Justin's favorite guy?
See, I don't know. I just haven't heard enough about him in order to get behind him.
Well, he's been hurt, and so he's now not. So I guess we'll see what happens there.
That's the thing. It's like, at least the Terrace Marshall stuff I understood, because like I was hyped for Terrace Marshall coming out of the draft, but we didn't hear about everything because he was hurt, and then now it's just like he's been the talk of camp. I mean, literally, like, I don't know if y'all saw that picture of him like catching the touchdown in the back of the end zone, and then just Robbie Anderson in the background is looking like, oh my god, like that sort of thing. But it's like I haven't heard anything about that with Eskridge, so it's just it's harder for me to get behind like drafting him at cost. Just like I haven't heard the hype. I need the hype, because other than that, he just feels like a dart throw at that point.
Right.
Well, yeah, he feels like how David Moore or whatever, whoever's been there in that spot for the last couple of years, who really doesn't do much anyway. Actually,
and coincidentally, David Moore now plays for the Panthers.
Right.
Ironically, we're going to be on the clock again here coming up. I think. Can we agree that we don't need another tight end here? Is that
yes? Oh yeah.
So we don't need another tight end here. If you look at running backs, there's a couple that fall in the ADP range, and then you'd be reaching on a guy. So I think we can probably wait on running back right now, unless there's someone who has a lot of conviction. I think wide receiver is probably the way to go here.
Yeah, unless Damian Williams taken already. I must have missed it already. I
have so much Damian Williams. Like I need to slow that. I need to slow that roll on my drafts. I have way too much.
Damian Williams is there.
Oh, he is there.
I would take Damian Williams.
I mean, sure. Like I said, I've been taking him everywhere. I think he's in a really, really good spot, and people are just forgetting how good he was in KC in 2019 before he sat out. You got Tariq Cohen is hurt. I mean, sure.
I'll continue to say that Damian Williams should have been Super Bowl MVP for that particular game. That's been my sticking point since the game. That's been my sticking point.
And then he's got a year of rest, and then you got Tariq Cohen's hurt, and Montgomery. I mean, I think that he's super cheap, and people are just kind of forgetting about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I like the Damian Williams pick. Good call on squeezing that one in there. Really, really solid pick. Question for you guys on our running backs right now. We're looking at 4. Do we need to add a 5th? Knowing that we added Damian Williams, do we need to go a little bit? Do we need to play a little bit more safer in our minds and add a 5th running back, or do we like this 4 running back build? Personally, I don't feel like we need to have a 5th running back if we don't want to. I'd be fine with these 4. What about you all? Go ahead, Chris.
I'd say that's why I'm holding my hands up. Like I'm good with 4 at this point. Okay. Yeah, with the amount of draft capital that we used on picking those guys, especially taking like 3 in the early rounds. I mean, and this is just a micro thing and a personal preference thing for me, but we don't have any sort of concern with like having 2 guys out at this like on the same bye week. So there's really no sort of roster concern there where we might need to supplement that with a 5th running back. So having all of that spread out over different bye weeks and all that, the upside that each of them present, I think 4 is fine for this particular build without too much of an issue for me, to be quite honest.
Jen, how about yourself?
I tend to go with 5 depending, but like Chris said, considering we have no bye week issues and we have 2 clear-ish starters. I mean, Sanders is a starter. I mean, I think we're fine.
And we've got at least like Travis Etienne, who we think should be the starter, at least co-starter to begin with, and could evolve into the starter later. So we could wind up with 3 starters at some point, like later on down the line. Yeah. It's just that there's enough for me to get excited about. Yep, I was just going to say that name right there that you just pulled up. Yes, sir.
Do you have any reservations with Quez Watkins right now, Jen? Is there someone at the wide receiver position you would want to add?
I mean, we could. No, I mean, I'm fine with him. I like taking him. I mean, we may be able to get him, next round and wait, or we may not. So I'm fine with that. Yeah. Let me see who else is there. I'm not loving really anybody else. I mean, we could have gone with Brown. But yeah, I'm fine with Watkins.
That would have been a full on like Washington onslaught if we had gone. Do you mean John Brown?
Right.
Maybe John Brown.
No, I was talking. I was. Yeah, no. I forgot that we got Curtis Samuel too. So yeah, and
Yeah,
we're good.
Watkins is certainly an early pick here. My question now that I always find myself asking myself whenever I am drafting is, am I going to get stuck with that one like woke to the training camp news, the preseason news hype, where even though the ADP doesn't make any sense right now in terms of what it's showing versus where we just took him, is there going to be that one person who's as high on Watkins as, or any player for that matter, as we are based on some recent news, based on some recent performances where we thought we could get him in a later round and now we can. And I think kind of rounds like 15, 16, 17, and 18 are rounds where I'm kind of willing to be a little bit more free with my selections in hopes that I can get the right players I'm more concerned about getting who I think is the right player on my roster than I am necessarily getting them at a value based on what the ADP suggests that is, if that makes sense. I think Watkins qualifies for that for me.
Yeah, 100% agree. Opportunity cost, especially at this point in the draft, completely falls off at pretty much all the positions. So unless you think you're going to wind up hitting on, like the next Justin Jefferson, who is going at pretty much the same cost as of during last season, there's really no problem to taking dart throws like that at this point. I essentially throw ADP out the window. Like if I have both of my onesie positions set and I'm fairly stable at the other position, so I've got like strong starters at both running back and wide receiver. Once we get into like the teens, I just kind of toss like wide receiver out the window and I'm looking to complete stacks or find upside like wherever I can, because you really are trying to swing for the fences, especially in a tournament setting like this.
Yeah. Jen, anyone standing out to you with this next pick here as we come on the clock?
Scroll down a little bit more of those receivers. I don't like it. I'm out on most of those guys that are up there.
I like Zacchaeus.
I'm going
to throw him in the queue just to make sure.
Okay, that's fine.
Dwayne Eskridge, Donovan Peoples-Jones.
I do. I like Josh Reynolds. We have AJ Brown, but I like Reynolds. I still think, even though Julio's there, I think Reynolds is going to get some work, and Julio's already injured. So I've been taking some Reynolds action. That would be the only guy I'd argue for.
Him or Josh Palmer. I've actually been I've been kind of swayed towards Josh Palmer over the last couple of weeks. If you want to think that the deep ball is still going to be there for the Chargers, and like Guyton, he's a speed guy, not fairly efficient with his targets. Tyron Johnson is a little bit more efficient with his targets. You can make an argument for him, but Josh Palmer, I think, has been the one making the more buzz in camp and during the preseason. So I wouldn't mind that either.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. We did go ahead and I just put Zacchaeus in the queue just to make sure we got him. But there's a very good possibility we get Reynolds at this next pick, which Jen, I like your logic behind that. Reynolds was a guy who I was kind of hoping that, after he signed, that the Titans were going to go out and get someone like a Julio Jones, because I kind of wanted to see what Reynolds could do with a more complete target share, perhaps maybe something upwards of 18 to 20%. And then that didn't happen. But his teammate is Julio Jones. I think, is Julio still injured? Is he nursing it? Whatever the case may be, he might not necessarily have a full slate of healthy games. If that's the case, then we could kind of see some Josh Reynolds here. I'm fine with taking him with this very next pick if we're good with that. He was a player who I liked pre-Julio trade.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I have a lot of Reynolds from April.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Reynolds pre-draft, and then I have a lot of Reynolds after the draft, and then I had to pull back after the Julio. But I've kind of started taking him again.
Yeah, shoot, why not? The thing is that whenever news like this breaks, the reason that we were taking them before something happened that stopped us from taking him now kind of becomes that same reason again, where we can now envision him playing, and we're starting to create this theory in our minds again of him actually playing again and perhaps being usable, even though we know that's probably not going to last for the duration of the season. We don't need it to last for the duration of the season, because the ADP suggests that a 1 or 2 week hit, maybe even top 24 for him, probably means he's returning value for your roster based on where you got him at. So we're getting him cheaper. Yeah. We're hoping that, if he does play, that he pays off just a very late round ADP. And, if you really want to get nitpicky about it, we're looking for players on different teams so we can see a path for them to maybe have a chance. I think if you're a wide receiver who's a teammate with Julio Jones, you probably have a chance of playing at some point in time if you're third or fourth on the depth chart, just given Julio's injury history. So I really like the Reynolds pick. We got one more pick to go. I threw James White in the queue just because he has very clearly dropped. I know we kind of said we probably didn't need a fifth running back, which I'm still fine with doing. It's more of a just throwing some value on the board there for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Can we look at some tight ends just to see?
I was just going to ask, do we want to look at tight ends here real quick? Because there's going to be some value there as well. I'll just say real quick, and then I'll turn it over to you all. One guy who I'm taking at the end of some drafts just because his teammate has not had the best camp so far, and this guy produced at a very good level last season, is Dalton Schultz, who almost is always available. So if he is there, he's a guy I would take. Can we agree that I can get James White off the board at least? Can we start there?
Yeah. If it was PPR, you might be able to talk me into it, but with half, another guy that is the least sexy out there, but Ebron is someone that I take here because I don't think Freiermuth or Freiermouth or however you pronounce it is not. He's not going to do much, and I think that Ben, we don't know what his arm is like, and I feel like Ebron's going to get more action than people think. But I could absolutely be talked into Schultz over him. I don't care. I just figured I'd at least throw the name out there.
Yeah, Ebron. We're lockstep with that, Jen. That's another player who I'm also taking in drafts as well. I took him, I believe, last night with Greg in my FFPC draft. Tight end premium, so a little bit different scoring, but conceptually, our reasoning was still the same. Hopefully not losing any snaps to a rookie. Chris, is there a tight end who you would like to see? Is there another receiver who you think we should take over any of these guys we have up?
Oh, I've been taking a lot of Hayden Hurst, actually.
Me too.
I think the logic holds that, even if you see like Kyle, even whatever you think of Kyle Pitts,
he went.
all of the videos from camp were already showing like Kyle Pitts being used as a slot wide receiver. He's not being used in line. It's always been detached from the formation. So if you have like a guy like Hurst that's out there, you can already see like his utility to the team. You can already see him like being played on a decent number of snaps already. We know what Arthur Smith's like red zone efficiency is going to look like, the neutral passing rate for the team, the efficiency that he's going to bring to Matt Ryan. So I could easily see Hayden Hurst like out kicking his 18th, 17th round like ADP on like a 400 yards or 500 yards and like 6, 7, 8 touchdowns or something like that. It's well within the range of outcomes for a guy like that. Yeah, because it's really just it's Calvin Ridley, it's Kyle Pitts, and then a bunch of dudes afterwards. We're talking about Olamide Zaccheaus, Russell Gage. I know that's your boy, Zach.
Not in his ADP, which everyone hates that I said that. Everyone thinks I'm like an idiot for saying I don't like Russell Gage in the 9th round, but I don't. I want to shoot for some upside there. So
and I'm 100% with you. Yeah, but I'll take those guys. But I know that offense is going to be like fantasy productive. But give me those fantasy producers at a reduced cost, and it doesn't get much more reduced than the 17th or 18th round.
Yeah. Hurst is another guy. I would have thrown him on the board. I don't know if you saw Chris. He was already taking a couple picks just before, so he couldn't go with him. I ended up going with Eric Ebron just because
works for me.
Jen had mentioned him. He's someone who I liked as well. And just hearing your explanation of Hurst, I know you didn't really talk much on Ebron, but hearing your explanation on Hurst, I think the same logic still kind of holds with Ebron. Is just a pick
100%.
Who, probably is going to have still a pretty decent role and a guy who, we can rely on for just a couple of, again, they're late round guys. If we get them to hit 1 week and into our lineup, if he has one tight end 1 week or one, top 12 week, he's probably worth the pick at this point in time. So I really like that a lot. And Hurst, I think, again, super example as well. I think he's going to be on the field way more than people are thinking. His ADP is probably in the range of tight end who should be going higher than what he is. I had made the point last night talking with Greg that this is in regards to the Schultz pick, how we don't necessarily hesitate to draft some teams 2 tight ends earlier, and that's simply because of like taking a walk down narrative street. So the example for that has always been the Patriots with the Hernandez and Gronk. Now it's Hunter, Henry, and Jonnu Smith, where they find them and we're sitting there saying, hey, this makes a lot of sense. Let's take them both. The reality is Dalton Schultz could make a lot of sense a little bit earlier in his ADP because even if Jarwin is playing, Schultz is super productive. He could be a valuable pick. And I think the same thing applies with Hurst. Like, I don't know if he necessarily makes sense to be going as low as he is, simply because we envision him as the tight end 2 on his roster. I think in the case of Pitts, he's going to be moved around the field so much that they're still going to have a tight end on the line who's going to be playing. And when it's not Pitts, it's going to be Hurst. And I just think that at the very least, his snap share could be higher than we're drafting him as, and also his target share could be higher as well. So I really like some of these late round tight ends going at the cost where they're going at. I think there's a good argument to make for a handful of them. Let's recap our team here. We'll get our opinions on it, and then we'll kind of get out of here. So we went with a 2-4-9-3 build, which I personally am not against. This looks very similar to a lot of my builds. Maybe I have the 5th running back thrown in there. I know we talked back and forth about that for a second. 9 wide receivers is probably very close to the max I get, unless I'm doing something crazy where I find myself finding a 10th. Not going a 3rd tight end would have given us a 10th wide receiver here, I think. But nothing abnormal with this build, at least from my perspective. It seems like you guys were pretty much in agreement. This is how your builds look as well. We went Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence as our quarterbacks. We went Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders, Travis Etienne, and Damian Williams as our running backs. Wide receivers, we got 9 of them: A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Adam Thielen, Laviska Shenault, Curtis Samuel, Nelson Aguilar, Quez Watkins, Olamide Zaccheaus, and Josh Reynolds. And then we close it out with 3 tight ends here: Goddard, Gerald Everett, and Eric Ebron. Jen, what do you think of this team? How did it shape up? Do you think that I'll be coming out to Colorado to split $100,000 Elvis prizes in January with you?
Yeah, book the ticket. No, I think it's a solid team. I mean, we've got a lot of stack action, right? And the word is not coming to me right now, but yeah, I mean, listen, we've got Hurts, we've got Philadelphia stack, we've got a Jacksonville stack. We even have mini mini micro stacks, right? We've got AJ Brown and Josh Reynolds. We have Curtis Samuel and Terry. So I think it's really interesting. I like it. I usually sometimes go with 5 running backs and 8 wide receivers. So 9 is definitely more than my norm. Yeah. But I do like it. I think there's a lot of depth there. Obviously, if someone goes down or if something happens. Sure. And I like our tight ends. We didn't really reach for anybody. We kind of, we got Goddard at screaming value like 2 rounds later. All of them were actually past their ADP. Yeah. So I think it's a solid team.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris. Any thoughts to add?
No, I 100% agree with what Jen laid out. I think even at the onesie positions, we provided enough upside by stacking like Goddard with Hurts, so we've kind of like anchored ourselves to the Eagles passing game, which like we were talking about earlier, at least from a camp a camp perspective, at least seems like there's some optimism to be had there. Whereas again, if you'd asked me like 6 or 7 weeks ago, I probably wouldn't have had the same optimism. But then if we look at our wide receivers, lay them out, I mean, we have at least 3 like viable wide receivers on a weekly basis that we should be starting. Plus, I mean, and we're also winning the flex with the amount of depth that we have at the position itself. And then with the running backs, I mean, Aaron Jones already has top 5 upside in my book, just given the fact that we already know he has at least a lock on the rushing production, or at least the first, second down duties. We know how much he's going to be involved in the passing game. If you really want to dive into it, as I was talking about earlier with Aaron Jones and his possible regression, the thing that typically happens though, if you wind up throwing less passing touchdowns, is you have more rushing touchdowns. And so then even if AJ Dillon is the beneficiary of some of those, that also benefits Aaron Jones. So I just see a lot of the touchdowns coming his way regardless. So 18, 19 touchdowns, however he scored a couple seasons ago, and then he almost did the same thing last year. I can see him repeating it again this year. And then, of course, we got Miles Sanders, who I talked about earlier, Travis Etienne, who has upside, not just at the beginning of the season, but he also has that late season upside as well. And then Damian Williams, who we all agree at the very least has standalone value. But if we've already, David Montgomery's already been hurt, I think Damian Williams at the very least has looked better than David Montgomery, and we really don't care all too much about Tariq Cohen to begin with. So at least from top to bottom, I think this roster is pretty solid.
Yeah. Just to touch on Damian Williams real quick, I didn't really get a whole lot of thought on him earlier on when we picked him, but he's a guy who I think could very easily, obviously, supplant a David Montgomery injury. I don't think there's anybody else on that roster who's going to be filling in for Montgomery should he go down. Mm-hmm. And then I think his upside, even if Montgomery is healthy, is that he finds a way to tap into the Tariq Cohen workload, even if Cohen is healthy, which I know right now he's not. So it's not really as much of a competition as it could have been at the start of the season. But I think the one nice thing with Williams is that he does not provide. I guess provides the wrong word. He's not as predictable of a player. He is not tipping the hand of what the Bears are trying to do on offense with him on the field compared to a guy like Tariq Cohen, who anytime he's on, you can probably assume that they're passing. So in terms of just kind of mapping out games, how you want to be able to confuse defenses, make them question what your intent is on any given down and distance, I think Damian Williams and the fact that he has the pass catching upside that Tariq Cohen has, plus is a very capable runner, I think he's kind of an interesting player to consider on the Bears roster. Even if Cohen is healthy, I think that there's a chance that he could see more work over Cohen just because of the fact that he brings everything to the table. Whereas Cohen, undersized running back, kind of only really brings one specific skill set to the table. Even though he does it very well, I think teams like to move off of being predictable when they're able to do so. Yeah. And I think Damian Williams kind of provides that. So, I would add more onto this team, but I think you guys kind of both covered everything, so I'm not going to get too much into it. Overall, I do like to go into construction. I do like some of the correlated games that we have just in terms of teams versus teams. Philadelphia.
Correlated. That's the word I was looking for before.
Yeah.
Because we got Philadelphia and Washington. Man. What Green Bay plays? Green Bay plays Minnesota in Week 17. Chicago. I mean, we didn't want to. Yeah, and we got Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville plays New England, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe I might be wrong.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, so it's just like we've got enough like micro correlations in this roster. I mean, this is fire, man. Like this is a really good roster. Can I have this?
Yeah. Well, the agreement is that when I put the names in here, you know what? I'll let you guys just see me do this.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
You
can name drafts?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never even looked at that.
Do one or two ends, and if you're
one, please.
One end. We'll make sure we get that.
I do like 10 ends afterwards.
He does, and in his articles, he does. He does like 15 in his and when he went, because I edit his stuff, so when he puts, there's like 15 in there. Exactly. It's the highlight of my day, to be honest with you.
She makes me look good every time.
There you go. Yeah, the agreement is that if it's any kind of money that's worth splitting up, I'll make sure I get it in the hands of the people who help us win this thing. So top prize is definitely a 3-way split for this team if it comes to us. So we'll make sure that we get that team named out. We'll make sure that we give credit where credit is due. Real quick, guys, just remind everybody where you can be found at on Twitter, where your work is popping up at, so we can get ourselves out of here. Jen, where can we find you at this upcoming season?
Yes, Jen, where can we find you at now?
Well, I always have the same answer until today. Yeah. So I am mainly at 4for4. I will have a lot of stuff at 4for4. Then I will also be writing for NBC Sports Edge and Yahoo this season. And then I am on Twitter at the Monday Mommy. Very good, very good. Big Peacock just got a new writer for the upcoming season. Very exciting. Chris, what about yourself? You can find me at 4for4 primarily, same as Jen. I mean, she's the one that's propping me up like week after week, making me look good on the page over there on the site. But I'll also be doing freelance work for NBC Sports Edge, and then also Football Guys. Awesome. Very good. Guys, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. This has been a lot of fun tonight. Again, it's Jen Eakins and Chris Allen of 4for4 and a lot of other sites as well, as we just found out here before we get out of here. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I hope everyone has a really great weekend, and we will catch you all next week on August 25th, where Denny Carter will be joining me for a draft. So we look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Have a great evening.